Just imagine, you waited your whole life to marry the man of your dreams. You stayed pure. You prayed for passion. You dreamt of love. Then, on your wedding night, he touches you once and never again. This is the story of Adana, a woman who thought marriage would bring her joy, only to discover pain she never imagined. After her husband, Chike, broke her virginity on their wedding night, he pushed her away completely. No more intimacy, no more love. Instead, he moved her into another room and began controlling her every step. Adana tried everything. Beautiful dresses, sweet perfumes, cooking his favorite meals, even soft word whispered at night. But nothing, absolutely nothing worked on Chike. Chike treated her like a stranger, as though she was just an object in his house. And the more she tried, the colder he became. She began to wonder, why marry me if you never wanted me? Why bring me into your life and into your home, only to break me piece by piece? Her loneliness grew heavy, her heart restless. And then, one day, Chike did something Adana would never forget. He brought a young, handsome man into their home as a house help. And my dear listeners, that was the moment everything began to change. Adana sat by her bedroom window one quiet morning, staring into the compound, lost in her own thoughts. The early sun painted her face with a golden glow, but inside, her heart was cold and empty. She had spent another night alone, hoping Chike would knock on her door, hoping he would come to her, even if only to ask how she was doing. But as always, the night passed in silence. Her life had turned into a pattern of loneliness. Wake up, cook for Chike, clean the house, smile when he came back from work, and then retreat into her own room like a tenant, not as a wife. Sometimes she wanted to scream, "This is not marriage, this is prison." But who would she tell? Her friends would never understand. They all admired her for marrying a man like Chike, handsome, wealthy, and God-fearing. To the world, she was lucky. Only Adana knew she was dying slowly inside. One afternoon, Chike walked in with a tall, handsome young man by his side. The young man was strong, with smooth dark skin, sharp eyes, and the kind of charm that made people look twice. His name was Somto, and Chike introduced him casually as the new house help. Adana's eyes widened. A house help? In her heart, she asked, "Why do we need a house help? I am here. I am capable. Why bring another man into our house?" But as usual, she dared not question her husband. Chike's words was final, and she had learned long ago that any attempt to argue only brought his cold stares and silent punishments. From that day on, Chike moved into their home. He worked diligently, cleaning the compound, washing the cars, and running errands. He was respectful, always greeting Adana with a polite smile and bowing silently whenever she passed. But what struck Adana most was not his manners. It was the warmth in his eyes. Unlike Chike, Somto actually looked at her. Not through her, not past her, but at her. And that look, simple as it was, touched the part of Adana that had been starving for attention. At first, she ignored it. She told herself it was foolish, even dangerous, not to notice things. But her heart was weak, and her loneliness was strong. Every time Somto's hand brushed hers when passing a plate, every time his smile lingered a little too long, something inside her stirred. She found herself watching him when he walked in the compound, admiring the way his muscles flexed as he fetched water or carried heavy buckets. One evening, as she walked past the kitchen, she overheard Somto humming a love song softly to himself. It was a lovely song filled with tenderness, the kind of words she wished Chike would say to her. Without realizing it, she stood there too long, listening until Somto noticed her. Their eyes met. For a moment, the world froze, and in that silence, Adana felt seen. That night, she lay in bed, her mind restless. Is this what I've been missing? Is this the kind of man I prayed for? She tried to resist the thought, but the more Chike ignored her, the more her heart drifted towards the young man under their roof. Adana tried to fight it. She tried to silence the whisper in her heart that called Somto's name every time he walked past. She told herself it was wrong, that she was a married woman, that temptation was the devil's trap. But each day, loneliness pushed her towards the edge. Somto, too, seemed to notice the invisible thread pulling them together. He was respectful, always careful not to cross boundaries, but sometimes his eyes betrayed him. When Adana walked past in her flowing wrapper, he would glance quickly, then turn away as if ashamed. When she bent to pick something up, she could feel his gaze lingering, burning into her like a secret confession. One hot afternoon, as Adana prepared lunch in the kitchen, Somto came in to fetch water. The kitchen was small, and their body brushed against each other as he reached for the bucket. The touch was brief, but it sent shivers down her spine. She froze, clutching the wooden spoon in her hand, her breath heavy. Somto looked at her, his eyes soft, almost questioning. For a moment, they stood there in silence, so close that Adana could hear his heartbeat. "Madam," he finally whispered, his voice trembling. "Forgive me if I offend you. It's just—" He stopped, shaking his head, as if words would betray him. Adana swallowed hard. "It's fine, Somto," she quickly said, stepping aside, but her voice betrayed her too. It was soft, shaky, carrying a longing she had tried to bury so long. That night, she could not sleep. She turned from side to side, remembering the way Somto had looked at her. She imagined what it would feel like if he had held her, if he had whispered love into her ears, if he touched her the way Chike never did. Her heart raced with guilt, but also with a hunger she could no longer deny. Days passed, and the tension grew unbearable. One evening, as Somto washed clothes outside, Adana brought him a glass of water. The fingers touched as he collected the cup, and this time, neither of them pulled back. His hand lingered on her, warm and firm, and Adana felt something snap inside her. She looked around. The compound was empty. Chike was not at home. Slowly and dangerously, Adana whispered, "Somto, do you ever feel lonely?" His eyes darkened, his voice slow. "Every day, madam," he answered, "but loneliness is nothing compared to yours." Those words cut through her like fire. In that instant, Adana knew she had crossed the line. She should have walked away, but instead, she stayed, and as their hands remained locked together, the air between them heavy with unspoken desire, the forbidden flame. My dear listener, temptation is like a spark, small at first, harmless even, but if left unchecked, it became a fire that consumed everything in its path. Adana had just lit that spark, and soon her world would never remain the same. The night was hot, and the air was heavy with silence. Adana tossed on her bed, staring at the ceiling. Sleep refused to come. Her mind was so restless, filled with thoughts she had no business entertaining. The memory of Somto's hand on hers kept replaying, and with every replay, her guilt grew weaker while her desire grew stronger. The thought of Chike, her husband, the man who was supposed to be her companion, the man who was supposed to make her feel this way. But in truth, he was only her jailer. He had built walls around her, walls of silence and neglect, leaving her heart starved. She whispered to herself, "Am I a wife? Or am I just a piece of furniture in this house?" The question burned in her soul. Sometime past midnight, Adana rose from her bed and walked to the sitting room to fetch water. She did not expect to find Somto there. shirtless, wiping sweat from his chest after finishing some late-night chores. Their eyes met in the dim light, and in that single moment, words failed them both. "Madam," he said softly, almost ashamed of being caught half-naked. Adana's voice trembled. "Somto, it's late. Why are you still awake?" "I couldn't sleep, ma," he replied, his eyes holding hers. "Sometimes the silence in this house is too heavy," he said. Adana froze. Those words pierced her heart, for they mirrored her own pain. She stepped closer, her bare feet silent against the cold floor. "You feel it too, Somto," she whispered. Somto nodded in silence, his jaw tight. "Yes, ma, but I know my place. I am only a servant here." Adana's heart ached. In that moment, she saw not a servant, but a man who understood her pain, who saw the loneliness behind her forced smiles. Slowly, she reached out and touched his arm. The warmth of his skin shocked her, but she did not pull away. Neither did he. The silence stretched, their breath heavy. Then, without planning it, without thinking of tomorrow, Adana leaned forward. Their lips met. First, it was soft, hesitant, but then deeper, desperate, hungry. A kiss that spoke of years of neglect and months of silent longing. When she pulled away, her chest heavy with fear. "What have we done?" she whispered, her hands shaking. Somto looked at her with both desire and fear. "What we both needed," he answered. "But madam, if anyone finds out..." Adana pressed her finger to his lips, silencing him. She knew the risk. She knew the shame. But in that moment, shame meant nothing compared to the fire burning inside her. That night, Adana crossed the line. The line she once swore she would never cross. And though guilt pressed heavily on her heart, another voice whispered in her ears. "It was Chike's fault." The voice said, "At last, I feel alive again." The sun was bright that Saturday morning, and the air smelled of fresh rain. Adana sat in the sitting room, dressed in a simple wrapper, her mind racing with 100 thoughts. The night before, she and Somto had crossed boundaries again, and though guilt ate her heart, a part of her felt alive, in ways she had not felt in years. But her fragile peace was cut short by the sound of a familiar voice at the gate. Amaka, her childhood friend, had come to visit unannounced. Adana's heart skipped. She wasn't prepared for company, especially not Amaka, who had the sharp eyes of a hawk and the curiosity of a cat. "Adana, my sister!" Amaka exclaimed as she walked in, hugging her tightly. "You have been avoiding me and hiding yourself lately. You don't call, you don't visit, you don't even pick my calls sometimes. I had to come and see if you are still alive," Amaka said. Adana forced a smile, masking her nervousness. "You know how it is, Amaka. Marriage and its responsibilities. Life has been busy." But Amaka's eyes wandered around the room, sharp and observant. She noticed the half-folded mail shirt dropped carelessly over a chair. That was Somto's shirt. She noticed Adana's flushed cheeks, the restless tapping of her fingers, the way she avoided direct eye contact. Adana's instinct stirred. Something was off. "Adana," she said carefully, lowering her voice. "Are you okay? You don't look happy. I mean, you look different." Before Adana could answer, Somto entered the sitting room carrying a tray of water. His presence was casual, but his eyes lingered a second too long on Adana's face, and Amaka caught it instantly. Her jaw tightened, though she said nothing. "Thank you, Somto," Adana said quickly, taking the tray with trembling hands. But it was too late. The look had been exchanged, and Amaka's mind was already racing. And as the two women sat together later, Amaka leaned closer. "Adana, tell me the truth. Something is going on in this house. I may not know what yet, but I can feel it. Talk to me, my friend. Don't carry this burden alone." Adana froze. Her throat went dry. The walls she had built to protect her secret began to crack under the weight of Amaka's concern. For a moment, she considered lying, laughing it off, or pretending everything was fine. But when Amaka held her hand and whispered, "I'm your sister before anything else. Trust me," the dam inside her broke, with tears spilling down her cheek. Adana confessed everything: her loneliness, her rejection by Chike, and the forbidden flame that had sparked between her and Somto. She spoke in broken words, her shame heavy, her heart trembling. Amaka listened in silence, her face a storm of emotion: shock, anger, pity. When Adana finished, silence filled the room. For a long, heavy moment, finally, Amaka said, "Adana, you are playing with fire, but maybe the fire is not the only danger here. If Chike is truly rejecting you like this, then there is something bigger he is hiding. You must find out the truth before it destroys you completely. You can't be a married, single woman in your own home." Those words sank into Adana like cold water. For the first time since she got married, she realized her affair was not just a dangerous secret. It might also be a doorway to uncovering Chike's own hidden life. Amaka's words refused to leave Adana's mind. If Chike is rejecting you like this, there is something bigger he's hiding. You must find out the truth before it destroys you. That night, as she lay alone in her room, those words echoed like drum in her head. She turned over, held her pillow, her mind restless. Could it be true? Was there more to Chike's coldness than just lack of interest? She remembered the strange way he had moved her into a separate room after their wedding night. She remembered how he never looked at her with desire, how he avoided her touch like poison. The thoughts sent chill down her spine. The following morning, Adana acted like she cared. While Chike prepared for work, she tried to watch him closely. His gesture, his movements, his habits. He moved with the confidence of a man who had nothing to hide. But his eyes always looked as though they carried secrets. When he left for work that day, Adana began her search. She went to his room, their room, though it no longer felt like hers. She opened his wardrobe, shuffled through his clothes, checked his drawers. Nothing unusual. His phone, too, was locked with a password she couldn't guess. But one thing caught her attention: a small, old-fashioned key hidden at the bottom of his drawer. Her curiosity grew sharper. She knew every corner of the house, every door, and every lock. But this key did not belong to any door she knew of. So where is it from? Later that week, as she walked through the corridor, she noticed something strange. At the far end of the house, near the back, there was a door she had never really paid attention to. It was always locked. At first, she thought it was just a storage room, but now her mind raced. Could this be the door the key belongs to? Her heartbeat quickened. She wanted to try, but fear held her back. What if Chike caught her? What if the truth was worse than the lies? That evening, Chike returned home earlier than usual. He walked past the sitting room, and Adana noticed his hand slipped into his pocket. She could swear she saw him remove a key, similar to the one she had found. And then, quietly, without saying a word, he walked straight to the locked door at the back of the house. He entered, shut the door firmly behind him, and stayed there for almost an hour. Adana's blood ran cold. What was inside that room? Why was it kept secret from her? And why did Chike act like nothing had happened afterward? As though he had never been there. Something is truly wrong. That night, she could not sleep. She turned to Amaka, whispering on the phone. "You were right. There is a locked room in this house," she said. "Chike goes there. I think he's hiding something." Amaka's reply was firm, almost urgent. "Adana, listen to me and listen carefully. You must find out what is in that room. Secrets kept in darkness always rot. But be careful. Don't stop until you know the truth. My dear listener, curiosity is a dangerous thing. It starts as a whisper, but soon it becomes a hunger that cannot be silenced. And for Adana, that hunger was growing by the day. Little did she know, opening that door would not only reveal her husband's secrets, it would also unleash a chain of events that would change her life forever. The more Adana thought about that door, the more it haunted her. Every time she walked through the corridor, her eyes drifted towards it. It stood there silently, plain and unassuming. Yet, something strange, like a guard hiding the secrets of her marriage. One afternoon, when Chike left for work, Adana gathered her courage. She tiptoed down the corridor, the small key clenched tightly in her sweaty palm. Her heart pounded so hard, she feared Somto might hear it from the courtyard. She paused in front of the door, her hand trembling as she reached for the keyhole. Just then, a sudden sound made her jump, the soft creak of footsteps behind her. She turned quickly. It was only Somto, carrying a basket of laundry. But the way his eyes lingered on her, the way his lips parted as if to speak but closed again, made her blood run cold. "Do you need help, madam?" he asked carefully. Adana forced a smile, slipping the key into her wrapper pocket. "Nothing. I was just checking something," she said. Somto nodded slowly, but there was a strange knowing look in his eyes, as though he too was aware of the locked door. Later that evening, Adana walked past again and stopped. She pressed her ear gently against the wood, straining to hear. At first, there was nothing but silence. Then, faintly, she caught a sound, a shuffle, a thud, and what almost sounded like a whisper. Her skin prickled. She pulled back quickly, her breath unsteady. The door suddenly felt alive, as if it was breathing with secrets. That night, she laid awake, replaying the whisper in her mind. Were they real, or just her imagination? Why did Chike stay in that room for hours, yet never spoke of it? Why did Somto glance at it whenever he walked down the corridor? These questions were a torment to her, and Adana knew one thing for certain. She could no longer bear it alone. If she was going to uncover the truth about Chike, she would need help. Someone strong, someone she could trust. That person was her brother, Ebuka. From childhood, Ebuka had always been her shield, protective, sharp, and unafraid of confrontation. If there was anyone who could help her uncover Chike's secret, it was him. One Saturday afternoon, she invited him over under the pretense of a casual family visit. The moment he walked in, tall and broad-shouldered, his warm smile gave her courage. After greeting and walked and small-talked, Adana quickly led him into her room, away from prying ears. "Ebuka," she whispered, her eyes filled with tears. "I need your help. My marriage is not what it seems to be." Her brother frowned, leaning closer. "Talk to me, Ada. What is going on? Is Chike hurting you? Does he beat you? Wait, I hope he's not maltreating you." Adana shook her head quickly, not with his hands, but with his silence. From our wedding night till now, he has never touched me again. He keeps me like a stranger in this house. Ebuka, I look like a furniture to him. And she hesitated, her voice dropping even lower. "There is a locked door in this house, a room he hides from me. I found a key, one key, but I think he has another. I have heard whispers coming from inside, and sometimes Somto, the house help, looks at the door strangely, like he knows something too." Ebuka's expression darkened, his jaw tightening with anger. "So that's why you've been looking pale. That man is hiding something from you, something he doesn't want you to see." "Don't worry, Ada. I will find out what it is." That evening, When Chike left for an errand, Ebuka pretended to relax in the sitting room, but his eyes followed every movement in the house. He waited until the coast was clear, then beckoned on Adana. Together, they crept down the corridor to the locked door. "Do you have the key?" he asked. Adana nodded and handed him the small old key she had found in Chike's drawer. Her hands trembled as Ebuka fit it into the lock. He turned slowly. It clicked, but the door refused to open. It was as though another lock held it firmly in place. Ebuka cursed under his breath. "I knew it. He's using more than one lock." He pulled at the handle, testing his strength. "Ada, I'm telling you, something serious is behind this door. It's not just a storage room, but don't worry. I, your brother, will find a way." As they stepped away from the door, Adana felt a wave of fear rush through her. What if Chike discovered they were trying to break into his secrets? What if Somto had seen them? So many what ifs. Later that night, when Chike returned, Ebuka sat calmly in the sitting room, pretending to watch television, but Adana watched closely too. She saw Chike slip his hand into his pocket, again pulling out a small key. Without a word, he walked down the corridor and disappeared into the locked room for almost an hour. Ebuka's eyes followed him silently, his mind working fast. When Chike finally emerged, his face was calm, almost too calm. He smiled friendly at Ebuka, but his eyes carried a warning. "You're welcome, brother," he said, his tone smooth. "I trust you are comfortable in my home." Ebuka smiled back, but behind his smile was fire. Later, when Adana came to him quietly, he said, "Ada, I will not rest until I know what your husband is hiding in that room. But listen to me carefully. This is dangerous. You must be strong. Whatever we find may change everything you thought you knew about this marriage and about this man." The house grew colder as days passed. Chike's mood shifted in subtle but frightening ways. Sometimes he would stare at Adana for too long, as though he could see through her skin and into her thoughts. Other times, he would sit quietly, tapping his fingers on the armrest of his chair, his eyes drifting towards the locked room. Adana noticed it, and so did Ebuka. But her brother was not a man to be intimidated easily. "Ada," he whispered one night, "he suspects something. If we wait too long, we will lose our chance. So tonight, I will check that room." Ada shook her head in fear. "No, Ebuka, please, it's too risky. Chike might catch you. He isn't himself anymore." But Ebuka only smiled and squeezed her hand. "You forget. I'm your elder brother. I can't sit here while you suffer. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing." That night, when the compound was silent and the crickets sang outside, Ebuka crept out of his room. Adana lay awake, praying silently, her heart pounding. Every creak of the floor made her grip. Ebuka moved to the corridor, the small key hidden in his palm. The locked door stood before him, quiet and heavy like a secret waiting to be told. He inserted the key, and with a soft click, the door began to open. Inside, the room smelled of dust and something else, something metallic. He stepped inside cautiously, his eyes adjusting to the dim light. What he saw made him freeze. There were photographs, old and new, pinned to the wall. Pictures of men, some smiling, some half-burned, their eyes scratched out. Clothes folded neatly in boxes, perfumes, letters, and in the corner, hidden under a sheet, there was something larger, something that looked almost like... A floorboard creaked behind him. Ebuka spun around. Chike stood in the doorway. His face was calm, but his eyes were as sharp as knives. "Brother-in-law," he said softly, his voice barely steady. "You shouldn't be here." Ebuka tried to steady his breathing. "Chike, what is all this? Why lock these things away? What are you hiding from my sister? Are you a ritualist or something?" Chike stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. For a long moment, silence filled the air. Then he smiled faintly. "Some secrets," he whispered, "are better left buried." Adana, still in her bed, felt a sudden chill. She didn't know why, but tears slid down her cheek as though her soul already knew something terrible was unfolding. By morning, Ebuka was gone. When the first rays of dawn crept into the compound, Adana's eyes were swollen from crying. She had not slept a minute, not even a wink. The house was too quiet, too empty. Ebuka, she whispered, peeping into his room. His bed was neatly made, his bag still by the corner, but he was gone. Just like that, her stomach twisted. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. She rushed to Chike in the sitting room. He was already dressed in a clean white shirt, calmly sipping his tea. He looked at her and smiled faintly, as if nothing in the world was amiss. "Where is my brother?" Adana demanded, her voice trembling. Chike sipped again before answering. "Perhaps he went out early. Maybe he didn't want to disturb you." Adana stared at him, her heart racing. "He would never leave without telling me. What did you do to him, Chike?" For the first time, Chike's smile cracked. His eyes turned cold. "Be careful, Adana. Curiosity has already killed your brother. Don't let it kill you too." Her knees weakened. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. She stumbled back into her room, shutting the door. That night, unable to rest, she heard faint sound, a dragging noise, a soft thud, and then whispers. She pressed her ears to the wall, and her heart nearly stopped. She heard two voices, Chike's voice and the house helps. They were laughing softly, and then came another sound. Something heavy being moved across the room. The next morning, Adana searched every corner she could, and then in the corridor near the locked door, she saw it. A faint line of red simmered across the tiles. Blood? Her brother's blood? Her hand shook violently as she traced it, but before she could go further, Chike appeared before her. "Looking for something?" she asked. He smiled, thin and dangerous. Adana backed away, her heart thundering. For the first time, she realized she was living with a stranger, a man who could destroy her without a second thought. She ran to her friend Amaka and broke down in tears. I think my brother is dead, and Chike is behind it." Amaka listened, holding her tightly. Then she whispered, "Ada, you must survive. If you stay quiet, he will finish you too. But if you act smart, you might find out the whole truth. Be strong for your child, for your life." That night, Adana lay on her bed, her mind a storm. The blood, the whisper, the lies, all pointed to one thing. Chike was hiding something bigger than she could ever imagine. Maybe he was a ritualist. Maybe he had used his brother for rituals. And how would she face this? She kept on thinking, or perish. The day finally came when Adana could no longer keep silent. With Amaka by her side, she stormed into the locked room one evening when Chike left the house. She used the spare key she had secretly taken from the house helps. Her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear herself breathe. The door creaked open, and what she saw nearly broke her. Inside the dimly lit room were pictures pinned on the wall. Pictures of Chike with Ebuka. Not just casual pictures, intimate ones. Their arms around each other. Their eyes filled with something she had never seen in her husband's eye when he looked at her. In one corner was a box. Inside it were men's clothes, blood-stained rags, and Ebuka's necklace. Adana fell to the ground, sobbing. "Oh God, it's true. He killed my brother." At that very moment, the door slammed shut. Chike stood behind her, his face twisted with fury. "You shouldn't have opened this door, Ada." Adana backed away, clutching her stomach, terrified. "Why, Chike? Why did you marry me if you never wanted me? Why did you hurt my family?" For the first time, Chike's mask fell. His voice broke as he shouted, "Because it was never meant to be you. It was never about you, Ada. It was about him, Ebuka. From the very first day I met your brother, I wanted him, but he betrayed me. He tried to leave me, Ada. I couldn't let that happen." Adana gasped in horror. All this time, the strange coldness, the secrets, the whispers in the night, it was all tied to her brother. The neighbors heard the commotion and soon the police were called. But before they could drag Chike away, another bombshell dropped. It was the court day, and in court, during the trial, it was Ebuka, alive, thin but breathing, who shocked everyone. He had escaped the night Chike tried to kill him and had been hiding in fear. And in that courtroom, Ebuka confessed everything. His voice, but his words tell through the silence. Yes, I am gay. Yes, Chike and I were once in a relationship. He married my sister to cover his shame. But when I tried to end it, he turned against me. He set this whole trap, manipulated events, and even tried to kill me because he couldn't stand losing me. He was never her husband. He was my secret lover. The entire court stood in shock. Adana wept uncontrollably, her heart in pieces. Amaka held her as Ebuka continued. Chike was later sentenced to life imprisonment for attempted murder and conspiracy. Months later, Adana gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. When the DNA test results came out, the truth landed like thunder. The child was not the house help's. It was Chike's. Despite everything, her cold, dangerous husband had fathered her son. Adana looked into her baby's innocent eyes and whispered, "You will never be like your father. You will grow up in light, not in darkness." And with that, she closed the chapter of pain and began a new life, one built on truth, survivor, and the strength of a woman who refused to let secret destroy her. Dear viewers, in life, things are not always what it looks like on the outside. But may we not enter into the wrong hands or marry a weapon fashioned against our lives. Thank you for watching.